Welcome to the latest episode of the Three-Piece Combo MMA Show, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka Three-Piece Combo, and today we're going to go over Moraes versus Sandhagen, this weekend's UFC card. Now, we're going to break down the main event, and then we're going to break down the co-main event. If you want picks for the rest of the main card, you can go on to 5reasonsports.com, and we have the rest of the picks there. And then we also have a bonus, as well as who's going to win. We're taking a look at, how are they going to win, via TKO, decision, etc. So if you want the rest of the picks for tonight's card, you can go on over to 5reasonsports.com and take a look at all of our MMA content, and also, of course, the Heat content, MLB content, NFL content. And for this fight coming up this weekend, moving on, of course, we have Mariah taking on Cory Sandhagen. Now, this is a big fight because Mariah is ranked number 1 and Sandhagen is ranked number 4. Now, for Mariah, he's coming in. He won against Jose Aldo, but when it came to the title fight, he was stepped over, and Aldo got the title shot against Petr Yan because many thought that Aldo did win that fight, so it was kind of deserving. Watching that fight again, it was really close, so it was as close as a draw as you can possibly get. But Mariah did do well in that fight. Now, for him, he wants to hold on to that number 1 ranking. Right now, Petr Yan does not have a contender that's clear-cut right now. It should be Aljamain Sterling because he did beat Cory Sandhagen. But right now, the UFC isn't sure who's going to go ahead with that. So he wants to hold on to his number 1 ranking. And if he loses this fight, obviously he'll go down and he'll get further away from that title shot. Last time he fought for the title was against Cejudo, and he won the first round really well, and then he went down from there. Now, for Sandhagen, he definitely wants to come in, and he wants to become a the champion, of course. Now, as the number 4 ranked contender, he just lost to Aljamain Sterling. So if he were to win, he might wait for one more fight to happen, which would be the Sterling-Yan fight, and then he would get that fight. So he would be second in line right now for the title fight if he wins this weekend's fight. Of course, if he loses, he's going to be about 2 fights away because that'll drop him from 4 probably to around 7, and he might have to fight a lower contender and then go back up to have another top 5 contender for him to get a title shot. Now, getting into the fight breakdown, for Mariah, his weapons is that he's really explosive. He comes in definitely as the much more powerful striker. He throws heat. He'll throw heat, and he diversify his strikes as well. So he won't just throw to one part of the body. He'll mix it up between the head, between the body, between the legs. And he does a really good job throwing a good amount of leg kicks, which we'll talk to when it comes to the keys to victory. That's going to be one of his keys, is making sure that he uses those leg kicks and that he continues throughout the fight. And as well as he does switch stances throughout the fight. So he's very good at being fluid and switching between stances as a way of advancing, as a way of retreating, and throwing shots off of both ways. So even if he were to get compromised on one leg, he does have the ability to continue the fight and continue to move forward on either stance. Now, what's his weakness is that has a very low gas tank, and you can tell that he, in a lot of his fights, he does win the first round, maybe even the early second round, but then he starts to waver. And that's something that you don't want to have, especially if you want to fight for a championship belt, because then you're going to have to go 5 rounds deep. And we saw against Cejudo that he wasn't able to do that. And a lot of his fights that he wavers, and especially in the late second and third round. He's weaker when he's backing up. So when he's on his back foot, he doesn't have the power that he normally does, and he looks uncomfortable. So we might want to keep him on his back foot. And he's horrible against the clinch. Against Cejudo and against another fighter, they had him in the Muay Thai clinch, and he just did not know what to do, and he took brutal knees, which essentially put him out for the fight. And he has a tendency to drop his left hand, so if his opponent throws an overhand right or a right jab, it does a good job of getting through. It's pretty good. It's pretty accurate when you go from the right side or his left side. Now, for Sandhagen, he's obviously a submission specialist. So for him, he's going to want to get the fight on the ground. He's super long for the division. He's 5'11". So being 5'11", fighting at 135, that range definitely helps him out. He does have really wonky movement. He'll move, side to side, not in so much a straight up front to back. He moves in kind of a a side to side range, and he does a good job of mixing up his stances as well. He'll move from southpaw and to orthodox. So it's going to be interesting to see how they match up, especially when it comes to the footwork. For him, he also uses his jab as a distance manager since he's fighting so many people that are smaller than him. He obviously has the range. So as using that jab, he makes sure that his opponent doesn't get into their range. Obviously, being the smaller fighter, he does throw flying knees. So you'll see in a couple of his fights that he does go for a flying knee, which is always a fun technique to see. It doesn't work all the time, but when it does work, it works out really, really well. Now for him, some things that he might want to make sure he addresses for this fight is that he keeps his hands really low. And especially against someone like Marlon Moraes, who's an explosive striker, you don't want to keep your hands low. You don't want to take any chances. He doesn't always check the leg kicks, which might compromise him later in the fight and which might not allow him to switch between stances. And when he switches between stances, what he'll go orthodox when he's throwing punches, but when he goes to kicks, he'll go southpaw. So if he's not able to go to one of those, you essentially cut off half of his weapons. And of course, he's not as good as a striker. Moraes comes in as the much more polished striker, the much more powerful striker. And for him to win this fight, he's going to want to make sure, or for Sandhagen to win this fight, he's going to want to make sure that he tries to really get it to the ground. Now, that's going to transition us right to our keys to victory. Now, for Moraes, he's going to want to use those leg kicks. Sandhagen is going to want to keep him at range. So if he's at range, those leg kicks are going to be there most of the time before he's able to get it in. He's going to want to avoid the takedown. Obviously, he does have a little bit of a weakness when it comes to the ground, and he has a gas tank issue, so you don't want to be on your back grinding, trying to hip escape or shrimp or work your way up when you have to use all that energy. You want to conserve that energy for your strikes. He wants to be explosive and burst, especially since this is a main event. He doesn't want to wear himself out. So it is a possibility that, third or fourth or fifth round, that he might not perform as well as he does in the first or second round. So for him, what he would want to do is to just not explode all the time. He wants to be explosive, but in bursts. When he has the range, go for it. But if he doesn't, just work the leg kicks, use the lower energy techniques to maintain his energy throughout the fight. And he has the advantage on the feet, obviously, so he wants to keep the pressure. I think for him, he's going to obviously want to always be on the front foot, and he doesn't want to be backing up against somebody that's taller than him. Now, for the keys for victory for Sandhagen, he's going to want to fight at a tactical pace. Since Mariah has the low gas tank, that pace would definitely favor Sandhagen. He's going to want to take him down. If he can take Mariah down, he does a good job with the submissions, so he might be able to wear him out, especially over the course of a 5-round fight, be able to take him down and grind on him and just make sure that he loses his energy. And once he has those mental lapses because of the lack of energy, that's when the submission will open up to itself. And something else that'll really work for him, since he's 5'11", he doesn't really use the Muay Thai clinch much, but I think this would be an excellent opportunity for him to use that clinch, since Moraes has a really hard time guarding it, and he has a much bigger frame than Moraes. That Muay Thai clinch could do a lot of damage moving forward. Now, who I think is going to win this fight, I am going to go with Marlon Moraes. I feel like his advantage on the feet is much more prominent, and if he isn't taken down, that he's going to have obviously the advantage. Now, that's a big if Sandhagen won't be able to take him down. But Moraes has pretty good takedown defense. He was able to stuff a couple of Cejudo's takedown attempts. So for him, he's going to just want to make sure that he keeps himself away from the takedowns, make sure that he uses his striking. He has a clear advantage in striking. And I think he's going to want to try to make sure that he uses those leg kicks. Those leg kicks are going to be super key, especially with the distance that Sandhagen is going to want to fight at. So if he's able to use those leg kicks, be explosive in bursts like we talked about, and really conserve his gas tank, I think Mariah is going to be able to get this victory. Now, moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we have Edson Barboza taking on Makwan Amirkhani. Now, this is another great striker versus grappler meeting, where we see two guys that are complete contrasts. For Barboza, he's a stand-up master. He was considered at his, maybe even just 2 years ago, the best striker in the lightweight division. Now, Justin Gaethje came in and probably took that name, but he does have really good striking. His leg kicks are nasty. His leg kicks destroyed Anthony Pettis' thighs. If you want to go check the replay for that fight, the inside of his thighs were black and blue. So his leg kicks in and out are super nasty. He does a good job of mixing up his leg kicks, so he doesn't just throw to the legs. He'll throw his kicks to the body, he'll throw kicks to the head, and he has a couple of really good kicks. One that he made Kevin Lee do the chicken dance. So if you want to watch him do the chicken dance, I'll see if I can put the link in the description for Kevin Lee doing a chicken dance after Barboza's head kick. And he has a clear advantage on the feet in this fight. Now for Amirkhani, he's coming in and he has much less of a record or of a experience than Barboza. Now Barboza is coming in and he wants to keep his rank for this fight. He's ranked number 12 right now, and he doesn't want to drop to number 20, where that's where Amirkhani roughly is ranked right now. Barboza is on a 3-fight losing streak, but those names are really high level names. You have Danny Ige, who's right now the 10th ranked fighter in the featherweight division at 145. Paul Felder was the fight before that he lost, which is an amazing fighter, which that was a split decision, and he's number 7 at lightweight. And then the third person he lost to recently was Justin Gaethje, who's obviously the interim lightweight champion right now. So he does have losses, Barboza that is, against really strong guys, and Amirkhani does not have those fights. His biggest fight to date was a loss to Shane Burgos, who's ranked, I think, 11th in the featherweight division. And for Amirkhani, he wants to get into the rankings. He's had 2 opportunities right now to break into the rankings and fight against ranked competitors, but he's failed both times, and that's his 2 losses in the UFC. So this is his 3rd chance to get up into those rankings. And for Edson, he wants to, like I said, make sure he doesn't drop down out of the rankings after fighting for so long at the top of the lightweight division, dropping weight down, moving to the featherweight division. The last thing he wants to do is lose his ranking. Now, when it comes to the fight breakdown, like we talked about, Edson has those nasty kicks. He is good when the wrestling isn't threatened. So when he's fought Khabib, obviously, which is a much level higher wrestler, when he's fearing the wrestling, his hands drop and he's susceptible to some strikes. So for Amirkhani, obviously threatening the wrestling is going to be a big key for him. He's going to want to. He has the wrestling background, so he's coming in with Barboza's weakness. He has good submissions, and he's not as much of a ground and pound ground fighter. So for him, he's going to want to try to get Edson submitted, overall. And the way I think this fight's going to go down, I think Edson's going to come in and use his leg kicks and use those kicks to his advantage. And Amirkhani doesn't have the greatest striking. He's been working on his strikes, but he doesn't have the best strikes in the division. And his hands still have a lot of work to do. You'll notice that he keeps his hand a little bit lower. And if Edson throws one of those round kicks to the head or just anything to the head, it could put Amirkhani out. Now, for the path to victory for Barboza, he's going to want to keep the fighting game standing up. He doesn't want to obviously take it to the ground. Use those leg kicks as much as he can to tear up those legs and the mobility of Amirkhani, and continue to use his advantage on the feet. And for Amirkhani, the way he's going to win this fight is if he's able to take this fight to the ground, make sure that he checks those leg kicks to keep his legs out of, as much damage as possible. And he wants to keep Barboza on his back foot. If he can keep Edson on his back foot, he'll take away a lot that he can do, and really make him feel uncomfortable. And he doesn't do a good job of circling out as much. You'll notice in Barboza's fights against other high-level wrestlers like Kevin Lee or Khabib that he doesn't do a good job circling and returning to the middle of the ring. He kind of gets caught in the corner sometimes. So for Amirkhani, if he's able to corner Edson, it might be a good advantage for him to win this fight. Now, who I think is going to win this fight, I'm going to take Barboza in this fight. Amirkhani hasn't fought anyone with the level of striking that Barboza has. And on top of that, Barboza has fought many high-level grapplers that have much higher rankings when it comes to the grappling. Obviously, Khabib compared to Amirkhani, that's a big step up. You know, you have guys that he fought like Tony Ferguson, he fought, like I said, Kevin Lee. So those wrestlers that are really ground and pound heavy, that'll pass your guard, that'll do work and beat you up on the ground, he's fought those guys already. Now, he's fighting a guy in a division that he's gone down to, so he might have a slight size advantage, as well as he'll know what to do. He's able to avoid the takedown. He was able to avoid a couple of Khabib's takedowns in the first round. So when he's fresh, he's able to avoid the takedowns. And even if he gets taken down, he does a good job getting his butterfly guard, you know, being really sporadic and really unorthodox with his movement on the ground and trying to sprawl and get back up. So we're going to take Barboza in this fight. Amirkhani is a great fighter, but he's not as active. He hasn't fought the people of the level of Barboza, and he still has yet to have the striking at least being close to the level of Barboza. So we'll feel like Edson will come in, take this one by TKO, and go on from there. Now, like I said, if you wanted to see, or if you want the rest of the picks for the main card of Sandhagen versus Mariah, go on to 5reasonsports.com and go on the MMA tab, and we'll have all the picks for this weekend's fight. Thanks for checking out the 3-Piece Combo MMA show brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan. I hope you guys have a great weekend and enjoy the fight.